Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a concept that, well, often feels straightforward,
Mhm.
but our sources suggest a radically different take. We're talking about courage,
Right.
but maybe not courage as just a rigid shield,
Yeah.
something uh, far more fluid, more powerful.
Indeed. And the conventional idea of courage, it often involves what our sources are calling a fortress mentality.
Fortress of mentality.
Yeah, it's that idea that when you face a challenge, you see it as this external thing, often hostile, something you have to resist or endure or just overcome.
Okay.
And the goal in that view is basically to maintain separation, keep yourself apart from the challenge, and hopefully emerge
Well,
unchanged.
right. So the standard view is basically survival.
Mhm.
Maybe brute force, you build walls, grit your teeth, just push through it. But I guess I'm wrestling with this a bit. If we don't build those walls, aren't we just vulnerable? How do these sources define strength here?
And that's precisely the radical reframe they're offering. Courage as conscious communion with uncertainty.
Conscious communion.
Think of it less like bracing against something and more like actively engaging with the unknown, allowing it to move through you, even transform you.
Okay, so not just getting through it, but getting into it.
Exactly. It's about surrendering, in a way, to the experience itself, allowing yourself to be changed by it. It's fostering this intimate collaboration with the unknown rather than just resistance or trying to survive.
That sounds, well, it sounds profound.
Oh, yeah.
So our mission today is really to uncover how these deep transformations happen, right? Not through resisting, but through this idea of radical receptivity.
Mm-hmm.
And what's fascinating is how the sources pull from such diverse fields.
Mm-hmm.
You've got aikido, jazz improvisation,
Forest ecosystem, shamanic wisdom.
even quantum physics and biology. It seems the goal is finding a kind of strength that's so, I don't know, so deep, so confident,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually afford to be permeable.
That's it, permeable.
Right.
So let's dig into that fortress mentality a bit more. If we've all been sort of conditioned to think courage is about protection, enduring, getting through things,
Yeah.
what if that whole way of thinking is, well, maybe upside down?
Okay, like the lotus flower example. It's beautiful, right?
Right.
But its beauty isn't despite the mud.
No, it's because of it. That muddy, nutrient-rich stuff isn't an obstacle it overcomes. It's the necessary condition for its growth. The lotus doesn't fight the mud, it transforms it.
Wow. So perceived obstacles might actually be vital conditions for growth.
It radically reframes them, doesn't it? And you see a similar thing in martial arts, like aikido.
Right, you mentioned aikido.
Instead of meeting force with opposing force, aikido teaches blending with the attacker's energy, redirecting it.
So you're not resisting.
Not directly. The attacking energy actually becomes fuel for your response.
Yeah.
The opponent almost becomes a dance partner. It's collaboration, not just confrontation.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if our own difficulties?
Yeah.
What if they work like that? Not just external threats, but maybe collaborative chances for transformation.
It demands a pretty fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Moving from seeing yourself as totally separate from your circumstances to recognizing that you and your circumstances are kind of co-arising, co-creating each other moment by moment.
So the situation isn't just happening to me.
It's happening as you. Your response isn't separate from the challenge. It's all part of the same living system expressing itself.
No, that doesn't mean being passive.
Not at all. It's about redirecting the energy you'd normally put into resistance into consciously participating in your own transformation. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that your biggest growth spurts often came not just from enduring something tough, but from finding a way to, well, dance with it? Those times you stopped fighting and somehow started to flow.
That's a powerful thought for reflection. Okay, so this reframing really picks up steam when we look at creativity in nature, this alchemy of engagement, as the sources call it.
Absolutely. Take jazz improvisation, a mistake, quote unquote. It isn't really a mistake. It's more like an unexpected detour, an invitation to go somewhere new.
So if a musician hits a wrong note,
A skilled improviser doesn't just stop or try to erase it. No, they lean into it, explore it, weave it right into whatever's emerging. The error becomes a gateway. It fuels innovation through this intimate collaboration with the unexpected.
that reminds me of, well, even cooking. You mess up a step, add the wrong thing, but sometimes just rolling with it leads to something amazing, something you never planned.
Exactly. It's life's own improvisation. That willingness to let disruption become creation. And you see the same dynamic in forest ecosystems. Fire, for instance.
We usually see fire as just destructive,
Yeah.
right? A catastrophe.
But often it's a catalyst. Many seeds actually need the heat of a fire to germinate. The forest doesn't just survive fire, it uses it to regenerate. It often comes back more diverse, more resilient.
So the forest's courage, in a sense, is being structured in a way that destruction actually leads to regeneration.
Precisely. And then you have shamanic traditions where the approach to fear is quite different.
How so?
Instead of pushing through fear or trying to conquer it, the practice is often about sitting with it, inviting it in, learning from it almost, dancing with it.
So fear isn't just something to get rid of.
It can transform into a teacher, a guide, even a source of power. It really makes you pause and think, how often do we try to just banish our fears when maybe there's wisdom there if we just stayed present?
So the common thread in all these examples,
Yep.
jazz, forests, shamanism, seems to be this idea of permeability.
Yes, that willingness to let the difficult, the challenging element actually penetrate and transform you.
Which sounds like weakness, maybe, at first glance.
But it's framed here as a kind of confident allowance of change. It reflects how complex adaptive systems actually work. They use disturbance as information, as fuel for evolution, rather than just walling it off.
Like our own nervous system, even.
Exactly. Your nervous system doesn't aim to eliminate stress entirely. It uses controlled exposure to stress to build resilience. The challenge isn't the enemy of strength, it's more like the sculptor.
It really prompts you to think, where in my own life am I resisting something that could actually be a partner in my growth?
Which brings us right to the heart of it. Conscious communion with uncertainty. What does that actually look like day to day?
Yeah, practically.
Well, traditional courage might say, I'll grit my teeth and endure this until it's over.
Right. Weather the storm.
But conscious communion says something more like, I will become so intimate with this experience, this uncertainty, that we transform each other. It's the difference between weathering the storm and actually dancing with it.
Dancing with the storm.
And isn't it interesting, when you look back at the times you felt most alive, most authentic, weren't they often when things weren't easy? When you were right there at the edge of your comfort zone, fully engaged with uncertainty.
That's true, actually.
It seems like consciousness, or maybe aliveness itself, really thrives at that edge, the edge between order and chaos. It's a fertile zone, you know? It avoids the stagnation of too much order, but also the fragmentation of too much chaos.
So practically then, this communion means being curious.
Yes. Becoming curious about what's trying to emerge, rather than just trying to control the outcome.
Okay.
It means listening deeply. What is this situation trying to teach me, instead of just imposing my own agenda on it?
And allowing yourself to be changed, not trying to stay the same.
Exactly. Trusting your essential nature, your core self, to handle whatever comes up, rather than constantly trying to protect this fragile idea of yourself.
There's even a parallel in quantum physics mentioned.
Right. The observer effect. Your way of observing, your approach, actually participates in shaping what's observed. So approaching a challenge with defensiveness? Well, it tends to create more conflict, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Whereas approaching it with curious engagement can literally transform the situation. Your courage isn't just a reaction, it's an active shaper of reality.
And here's the real shift, maybe. The ultimate goal isn't using courage just to get through the hard stuff.
No. The goal is using the difficulty itself to develop a quality of being, a way of being, that can dance with anything, where permeability, that openness, that is the transformation.
Wow. So what would it feel like to approach your current challenges not as problems you have to solve, but as invitations? Invitations to become more permeable, more intimate with life, more alive.
Which leads beautifully into this idea of the fertile void.
The fertile void.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit mysterious.
It is. It's that space of uncertainty, of not knowing, where the really profound transformations seem to happen. We're often conditioned to fear that space, right? We rush to fill it with plans, answers, control.
Yeah, uncertainty can feel pretty uncomfortable.
But what if the void isn't actually empty? What if it's pregnant with possibility?
Like in nature, you mentioned biological systems.
Think about it. Seeds germinate underground, in the dark. Babies develop in the womb. Butterflies transform inside a chrysalis. Crucial developments often happen in these hidden, enclosed spaces.
So the void isn't an absence of life.
It's life reorganizing itself, often at levels we can't easily perceive.
Okay, so courage as intimacy with uncertainty means
Yeah.
being okay with being in that void.
Being comfortable there, yes. Not needing to rush to a conclusion or force things to be clear before they are. trusting the unseen
But
process.
it's not just passive waiting, is it?
No, it's an active presence, a curious engagement with the mystery itself. Like,
Yeah.
think about mushroom mycelium.
The underground networks.
Exactly. Invisible, mostly. But creating these vast connections, preparing the ground for the mushrooms, the breakthroughs that you eventually see, your willingness to just be present in uncertainty. It's kind of like that mycelium network, building potential.
I like that analogy. It's like operating with an open API for chaos, as one source put it.
Ha ha. Yeah, instead of just firewalls trying to keep everything out, you're creating interfaces, allowing disruption to communicate, to become information, maybe even innovation.
So the most creative, resilient people, they find nourishment in uncertainty.
It seems so. They've somehow discovered the void isn't empty. It's actually full of potential.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but how do we actually start cultivating this practical permeability in our daily lives? What are the takeaways?
Great question. How do we practice this?
Well, first, the sources suggest the aikido response. So when you face a challenge, instead of that default, how do I push through this? Maybe ask.
How can I dance with this? What wants to emerge if we collaborate?
Right. Then there's the jazz improvisation. When something unexpected happens, a mistake, a disruption to your plan.
Instead of scrambling back to the original script, maybe explore it. Lean in, ask, okay, where does this new direction want to take me?
I like that. Next, the lotus meditation. Find something in your life that feels like,
Yeah.
well, like mud. Difficulty, confusion, maybe pain.
And instead of just trying to escape it, ask, how might this actually nourish my growth? What beauty could emerge from this?
Then the fertile void sitting. This sounds like mindfulness practice almost.
It is, in a way, practicing just being present with not knowing, noticing that urge to force clarity or control things and just letting it be, trusting the process that's unfolding, even if you can't see it yet.
Okay. And finally, the mycelium question. When things feel challenging, ask.
What invisible connections might be forming right now? What underground networks are developing unseen that are preparing the ground for something new?
So the overall goal here, it isn't to get rid of difficulty or uncertainty. That's not really possible, is it?
Probably not. The goal is more about developing such an intimacy with the whole spectrum of your experience.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the confusing.
That you can find nourishment anywhere. Create beauty from any material. Discover opportunity in any situation.
Exactly. It reframes courage, not as armor, but as artistry. Not as sheer endurance, but as engaged participation. Not about getting through life, but really getting into life.
So let's really sit with that reframing. Courage isn't the fortress. It's not just endurance. It's artistry. It's intimate engagement with life itself.
And the really profound truth, perhaps, is that you aren't separate from what you're experiencing. You are the experiencing.
You are the experiencing.
And when you can truly embrace that, courage becomes less about just surviving the storm,
And more about.
becoming the storm that transforms everything it touches.
Wow. Okay, here's a provocative thought then for you to take away. Maybe the most courageous thing you can do is to become so permeable to life that life in turn can become permeable to you, inviting this continuous transformative dance with existence itself.